Hi, my name is Kathryn Bonnen. I'm a postdoc at New York University in New York City, and I'm going to be one of the TAs for Neuromatch Academy this summer. And I've created this video to help people get started on some of the Python tutorials using Jupyter Notebooks. Now, it's worth noting that we highly recommend that you use Google Colab if you can. This is the environment that we're going to be doing the majority of our programming in during Neuromatch Academy. Now, we recognize that there are some regions where students will not have access to Google Colab, and we have solutions for that during Neuromatch Academy. But for the tutorials, our current solution is for you guys to get started with Jupyter Notebooks, which will be very similar to whatever we use during the course. So, with that said, let's dive in. Okay, so this is a document in the Precourse repository that describes how to get started without Colab. In fact, how to get started on the Python tutorials using Jupyter Notebooks. And it's a set of written instructions that you can follow along with. In this particular video, I'm going to talk about how to get started with Jupyter Notebooks using the Mac OS operating system. So the first step is to go ahead and download and install the Anaconda package manager. And that is right here. So I'm going to open this link and scroll down and click download. That takes me to the bottom of the page where I can in fact install the 64-bit graphical installer for Python 3.7. Once you have downloaded this and followed the instructions to install it, you can return to the Precourse repository document and get started on the next steps. So the next thing that you'll need to do is to create a folder for your Python tutorials. So I'm going to go ahead and create a folder in my documents file. And I'm going to call this Python tutorials 2020. And of course it's currently empty, but we are going to change that. So the next step in the tutorial is to actually open an application called Terminal. So if you've never opened Terminal before, you can reach it by going to Applications and then to Utilities, and it's under T for Terminal. So this is what a terminal looks like. It lets you access the file system of the computer and run commands. And what we're going to do is actually go to that location where we just made the folder. So using CD, I'm going to change directories to that folder. Again, it's empty, but we're going to go ahead and create an environment.yml file using a text editor called nano. So I'm going to run the command nano environment.yml, and that is going to open up a new file called environment.yml. And what we'll need to do is go ahead and copy the contents from the Precourse repository document into this file. Once you've copied it, you can press Control-O to save, and then Enter, and then Control-X to exit. And now if I type ls, it'll list the contents of the directory, and I can see that I have an environment.yml file. Now at this point, you've already downloaded Anaconda, so we can actually use that environment.yml file to install the environment that we want to be programming in. If you want to learn more about Python environments, what they are and why we use them, I have linked to a really awesome blog post by Oko Anita that's super helpful for describing this in more detail. Okay, so in order to install this environment file, we're going to type in conda env create, and that's going to by default use the file called environment.yml, and this may take a couple of minutes. It has to download packages and install them. Okay, so once it's finished installing the environment, we'll be able to run this command to activate that environment. So we'll run conda activate nma prep. And what you'll notice is that over here in the left-hand corner of the terminal screen, it now says nma prep, and that means that our programming environment is active. Now, it's worth noting that if you want to get started on your Python tutorials again in the future, so from this point, you'll have installed everything you need, you get started, and then you come back, you reopen Terminal to get started on your Python tutorials again, the only thing that you'll have to do is run this line, conda activate NMA prep. And then to open a Jupyter Notebook, you're going to type in Jupyter Notebook. So all of this installation stuff that we just finished doing, you only have to do this once. All right. So when you type in Jupyter Notebook and press enter, it takes you to this Jupyter page, and you can see the contents of the current directory that you were just in. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new Jupyter Notebook in the environment that we just created, NMA prep. So I'm going to click on that environment. And now I'm in a Jupyter Notebook, and I can do things like change the name. So this I'm going to call Python tutorial-1. I'm going to rename it. Beautiful. And so let me take you through the anatomy of one of these Jupyter Notebooks very quickly. This is what we call a cell. It's a block where we put code or text or anything that we want to put into our Jupyter Notebook. So for example, I'm going to set x equal to 2 and y equal to x plus 3, and then I can print y. And in order to run one of these cells, what I'm going to do is come up here and I can press run. And you can see that it prints out the value of y. Now, another option for running a cell is to press shift return or shift enter. And that also runs the cell in exactly the same way. And this is where we'll be typing our code during the tutorials and during the Neuromatch Academy. Another type of cell that you should know about is called a markdown cell. So I'm going to change this cell from a code cell into a markdown cell. And once I've done that, I can actually type notes in here. During Neuromatch Academy, the tutorials will have markdown cells or text cells for the purpose of providing you with information, mathematical equations, instructions, and the way that they accomplish this is with these markdown or text cells. So I'm going to say this is a markdown cell or a text cell. Above is my first code cell. And you would run this cell in a similar fashion. You can press the run button or you can press shift enter. So that's all you really need to know to get started with Jupyter Notebooks and the Python tutorials. The one other reminder that I have for you is do remember to download the data for the Software Carpentry's Python tutorial that you're completing and put it in the folder that you're using to create your Jupyter Notebooks and where we put this environment.yml file. I hope you have fun refreshing your Python skills or even getting started with Python, and I'll see you at Neuromatch Academy.